So much for joining us here tonight for this meeting of Horsham District Council's Governance Committee. I am your host and will be delighted so therefore it falls to me to, before we kick off proceedings, to just very briefly do the usual housekeeping that we have no fire alarm scheduled, but if there is a fire alarm, fire exits are clearly marked. And to move the first item on the agenda. But first, I'd like to thank a member of the public who's present today and various other members of our council who have chosen to join us this evening. It's always nice to have a committee well attended and people engaged and keen to contribute to the work that we do here. And I'm sure that my fellow committee members will welcome the opportunity to reflect on those contributions. So first of all, apologies for absence. I'm pleased to say we've had no apologies for absence, as is evidenced by the very full benches in front of me. So we shall move on to the minutes of the previous meeting on pages 3 to 6 of your agenda reports. And I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of February be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Does anyone wish to comment on the accuracy of the meeting? No, I take it then you are all agreed that I may sign the minutes as an accurate record. Thank you. So, item number 3, to receive any declarations of interest from members. Does any member have an interest to declare in respect of any item on tonight's agenda? So, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I'm the parish councillor for Pulborough, but I've reported that to the monitoring officer and she's cool with it. So I don't.
Excellent. I mean, yeah, she's cool with it indeed. She's given a particular dispensation in the case of your interest for you to participate fully in tonight's meeting, and that's great. So, Councillor Perry.
Yes, I have declared an interest in Henfield Parish Council and Upper Beeding's proposals because I was part of the discussion on that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Vice Chair of Bramber Parish Council and have been involved in discussions between Bramber and Stenning Parish Councils. So I will not take part in that part of this evening's discussion. Thank you. Thank
you very much, Councillor Croker. I do recognise that as you, Councillors Croker and Perry, have interest in the community governance review, and particularly as Councillor Croker, you feel that you may have been predetermined and because of your involvement that you feel that you can't take part in those particular things. I do feel, though, that it's appropriate that you will be able to remain in the room, but not be able to participate in the debate or the vote related to the proposals, particularly for Bramber and Stenning and Henfield and Upper Beeding as appropriate. And the monitoring officer has authorised this pursuant to her authority reflected in the Constitution on page 172 of the Constitution, paragraph 1.10, for those of you like me who enjoy reading it. Councillor Boffey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a member of Horsham Town Council. I have received dispensation to take part this evening and speak and vote. Just for clarity, whilst I was in attendance at the meeting of Horsham Town Council when they discussed the governance and review, and I provided some background information as regards the process and how it works, I did not take part in the debate around the council's response. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution, Councillor Boffey. So, announcement. I am pleased to say we have no announcements, so we'll get to the meat of tonight's business. Agenda item number 5, the Horsham District Council Community Governance Review draft recommendations. And we're joined this evening by Aisha Nottage, our Democratic Services and Elections Manager, and via Teams, Clive Joins, a consultant on the Community Governance Review, who will now introduce the report. And I suggest that we start with an overview of the consultation process, next steps, and the areas where no change is proposed. Then I suggest we run through each of the proposed changes in turn.
I think I'm starting off. So stage 1 of the community governance review ran from the 9th of May to the 22nd of June, which covered the entire district. And it was promoted via social media, posters, and the availability of both online and paper questionnaires. Additional support was also offered to residents requiring assistance to complete the survey. A total of 305 online responses were received, which represents 0.26% of the district's electorate. Whilst numerically moderate, this level of engagement is typical for an open CGR consultation, where participation is voluntary and self-selecting. As the report notes, respondents to open surveys tend to be those most aware of the review, most motivated to participate, or most affected by local governance arrangements. Their views therefore provide qualitative depth, highlighting practical issues, anomalies, and community identity concerns that may not emerge from a statistically representative sample. In addition to the online responses, the Council received 33 written representations, including detailed submissions from parish councils, district and county councillors and local organisations. Several submissions were collective responses agreed jointly by neighbouring parishes, reflecting established patterns of collaboration and shared community identity. Response levels varied significantly between parishes. Some areas, notably Thacombe with 52 responses, Horsham Town with 39, North Horsham with 28, Southwater with 28 and West Chiltington with 21, generated substantial engagement. Others, including Cowfold, Itchingfield, Rusper, Shermerbury, Wiston, received no online responses, though some submitted written representations. Taken together, Stage 1 produced over 330 individual contributions, providing a robust qualitative evidence base for assessing community identity, effective and convenient local government, and potential boundary anomalies. In terms of the next steps, the Governance Committee this evening are asked to note the responses to this consultation and approve the draft recommendations for further consultation between the 24th of July and the 7th of September, and approve changes to the terms of reference. The committee are also asked to approve the questions for the online survey, which will also be available in paper form, and delegate authority to myself to correct any errors or reflect any comments made by the committee in the draft recommendations or questionnaire. Members will also note that an email was sent to parish clerks seeking their support in promoting the second consultation. A letter will also be sent to all residents where the proposals, if adopted, could result in a change to the parish within which they are located. The letter will highlight the consultation, how to respond, and provide a map of the proposed changes. I'll now hand over to Clive to run through the areas where there are no changes proposed.
Okay, good evening. Thank you very much. Can you all hear me okay? Excellent, good. Thank you very much for that. Before I start, I'll very briefly introduce myself. My name is Clive Joynes. I was the Electoral Services Manager at the Isle of Wight Council for 23 years before I took early retirement a year or so ago. And for the last few years, I've also worked for the Association of Electoral Administrators as a consultant, mainly doing CGRs. I work with a number of authorities up and down the country on CGRs, a trainer on all things parish and electoral, and I'm also an examiner for members of the association who go on to take our qualifications. So that's a brief introduction to myself. The responses to stage 1 of the CGR, numerically, as Aisha pointed out, not huge, but some of the comments that we did get were provided some very good insights into some residents' thoughts. It's probably easier, first of all, if we run through the areas where we're not proposing, or my draft recommendations don't propose any change. So that's Ashington, Ashurst, Cowfold, Itchingfield, Pulborough, Shermanby, Storrington, Sullington, Washington, West Chiltington, Wiston and Woodmancote. In essence, from those areas, we either didn't get any responses at all, or very few responses, or a response that made a suggestion but didn't back it up with any evidence. In other words, very minimal contact from those areas. They don't join any other areas where a suggested boundary change is going to affect them. So those are the areas that we are proposing, or the draft recommendations propose no change.
So thank you very much for that presentation. So I understand that Councillor Jeffrey wishes to move the recommendations. So before we start the debate, is that correct, Councillor Jeffrey?
That is correct, Chair.
And do you have a seconder? So to note, unfortunately, Councillor Jeffrey's microphone doesn't seem to be working. This meeting is being live broadcast and recorded. So for the record, Councillor Jeffrey has indicated that he is happy to move the recommendations and does have a seconder, which is Councillor Levis. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Pleased to see your mic's working. Thank you. So I expect that it may be the wish of members of this committee to propose amendments to the draft recommendations arising from the debate. If that is the case and members have an amendment, that a point they wish to put forward, please advise me during the debate, and following the conclusion of the debate on all proposals, I'll ask Aisha to read out the amendments that have been suggested, and a proposer and seconder will be sought for the amendments at that time. This is my proposal simply to facilitate the smooth running of this meeting, where we have a number of matters to cover. As the proposer of the recommendations, Councillor Jeffrey, do you wish to speak on the motions now?
If I'm able to.
I beg the committee's patience while we address that, so that Councillor Jeffrey's able to address not only this committee, but also for it to be appropriately recorded. Thank you very much. I'll also note for the record that Councillor Lambert needs to step out for a moment. So conveniently, we will, with the committee's forbearance, pause for a moment.
Does it work? Yes.
I am. Thank you for the patience, anybody who is watching this live. What's life without a little bit of excitement? We will. I propose that we pause for a moment to await the return of Councillor Lambert. But if she is unable to return in due course, I might then ask us to resume the meeting in her absence.
Just checking, Chairman. Can you now hear me? Yes, looks like it's coming through.
Delighted to say that we can now hear you and see you on the screen as well as in person. Welcome back, Councillor Lambert. Thank you very much. If for any reason you need to leave the meeting again as an emergency, I propose that we'll continue the business of the meeting, but we will make a determination on your return about how we can proceed and what involvement you might have at that point. Okay, but hopefully we'll have you with us for the duration. And in the meanwhile, we've resolved the IT issue. So, Councillor Jeffrey, as proposer of the recommendations, do you wish to speak?
I would love to, Chair. Thank you. So thank you, Chair, and I'm pleased to move the recommendations set out in this report. Firstly, I want to thank officers, parish councils, local members and residents who have contributed to this community governance review. The level of engagement we've received demonstrates the importance that local communities place on effective and representative local governance. This review has not been about drawing lines on a map for their own sake. Rather, it has been about considering whether current arrangements continue to reflect community identity and whether they provide effective and convenient local government, which are the statutory tests which we are required to apply. The recommendations before us are varied in nature. Some seek to address long-standing anomalies where communities are divided between parish boundaries. Others respond to significant housing growth and changing settlement patterns. In several cases, the evidence presented suggests that existing governance arrangements no longer fully reflect how communities have developed over time. It is important to note that these are draft recommendations before us. Today's decision is not the end of the process, but an important stage within it. The purpose of the next phase of consultation is to ensure that residents, parish councils and stakeholders have a further opportunity to comment on the proposals before any final recommendations are brought back to this committee. Throughout this review, we have sought to take an evidence-led approach, and we have considered consultation responses carefully, weighed up differing views and sought to apply a consistent framework across the district. While members may hold different views on individual proposals, I believe the recommendations before us represent a reasonable and balanced basis for further public consultation. I therefore move the recommendations before the committee and look forward to hearing the views of members during the debate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Bevis as seconder, do you wish to speak now or would you prefer to speak later in the debate?
I'll speak to the resolution later, Chairman.
Thank you so much. So, at this point, does any member wish to comment or ask questions on the consultation itself broadly as a whole, or on any of the areas where no changes are currently being proposed? Councillor Croker.
Chair, just to clarify, you say the consultation as a whole. Do you mean what's happened or what's going forward? So I have a comment about what's going forward or what's proposed to go forward in terms of the questionnaire itself.
Okay, if it's related to the questionnaire and the consultation proposed going forward, yes, please share that now.
Thank you. It's where you have these multiple choice answers. One of them refers, which I think is related to Horsham Town, refers to option 1, option 2, or unsure, I think is. There's no option there, which seems to be a bit of an error. Thank you.
So I'll invite officers to comment on questions such as this, which are to do with the wording and drafting and framing of some of these consultations.
So what you're saying is should there be a fourth option that says no change, essentially, and maintain the status quo?
Essentially, yes, to be consistent with some of the other, most of the other options.
Yep, that's fine. We can add that in.
Excellent. So that's not something that is an amendment that would require any vote. That's something that the officers can undertake themselves. So noted. Thank you very much, Councillor Crook. Any other members have any comments on, again, on process, on matters such as this, or on any of the areas where there is currently no proposed change? Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Buffy.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wondered whether I could prevail upon Clive and his experience, really, to just see, set a little bit of wider context, really, governance reviews in other areas. You know, Is there anything we ought to be looking out for that's been kind of different about this review compared to what you see elsewhere? And I'm also just interested that, you know, it's 13 years since the last review, and there's been a fair amount of change and development in the district. I wondered whether that's, you know, commensurate with other areas, or, you know, if you could just sort of elaborate a little bit on that. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, thank you very much, Clive. Please do, if you feel able, respond to Councillor Bobby's question.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the CGRs that I work with in the country at the moment are driven by local government reorganisation. In particular, you may have a country area with a county town. The country area surrounding it is fully unparished. The country town in the middle isn't, and local authorities in many instances are seeking to establish new parish councils for those unparished areas before local government reorganisation takes place, before the larger unitary authorities are created, essentially to try and maintain a local voice for people. Your area is different in that your area is already fully unparished, and you have done community governance reviews in the past, and the most recent one established Horsham, what is now Horsham Town Council. There's also, I was quite surprised actually when I first became involved at the amount of development that's going on in your area. A number of these developments straddle existing boundaries, and I am working in a couple of instances in other places of the country where new and large developments do straddle boundaries. It's usual in those instances to amend the boundaries or indeed create new parish councils in some areas to ensure that new developments that are going to share similar characteristics aren't split between different parish councils, potentially receiving different levels of service, paying different precept levels, but yet in most instances gravitating towards the one place, the same place of their sort of services, their supermarkets, their petrol stations, their leisure centres, that sort of thing. So they're the two main kinds of CGRs that I've dealt with. In your particular case, we started with a fairly blank sheet. We were inviting residents to put forward their proposals in parish councils, parish councillors, members of the county, members of your own authority, to put forward their own proposals. So we were starting from a blank sheet. We may have received a proposal from a parish council that wouldn't necessarily be echoed by any of the residents in that area because they're unaware of it and therefore unable to voice their support for it. In other parts of your authority area, a parish council may have made its intentions known publicly well in advance of the close of the consultation, which allowed members of the public to either respond to that particular suggestion in the free text comments, or in some instances to start opposing it. That happened in some parishes, but it didn't necessarily happen in all of them. So those are the main differences between your particular CGR and other CGRs. What I normally find is that once you get to stage 2 consultation, you've got much firmer proposals. The public and the residents, the parish councils have got something to get their teeth into. The proposal, rather than being asked what they think, they're having suggestions put to them and we're asking their opinions on those suggestions. So you tend to get a better response in terms of a slightly higher response rate, and you tend to get more focused answers because on the whole, well, not necessarily always, they are concentrating on those particular proposals that are being put forward. One of the overriding factors in all the CGRs that I've done, all the sponsors that we receive, about a third of the respondents will object to either the creation of a new parish or a boundary alteration if they think their precept is going to go up as a result of that. So the finances weigh heavily in a lot of people's minds. And in some parts of the country, I've been doing CGRs in areas where literally a few extra pounds a year could make a significant difference to some people. So it is something that we do need to bear in mind that will be a driver for a lot of the comments that come in. But we do need to consider the tests set out in the Act. So that is what we're doing reflective of the identities and interests of the local community? So does it reflect what we see on the ground in terms of interests and identity? And is it going to be effective and convenient? So are we going to end up with a parish council in some areas that could be too small? So it really, really reflects the identity and the interests of the people in it, but it is too small financially to be able to do much other than be a talking shop. Now, there are other sources of income. There's grant funding that parish councils can get. The flip side of that is, do you get a parish council that's going to be too large numerically? So it's got a fantastic council tax base. It's got a very, very good income. It can do an awful lot of stuff locally, but it is larger and doesn't necessarily represent all the separate communities within it. Now, you can get around that to a certain extent by making sure that your warding patterns reflect local communities within a larger parish, but it's a balance that we have to try and get right, and it's not always easy. There are lots and lots of very, very small parishes up and down the country, and there are also some very, very large ones. So I think Northampton Town Council has an electorate of about 140,000, which is bigger than some districts. Weymouth Town Council in Dorset has a budget running, it's getting close on for, I think, £10 million now. So it runs an awful lot of local services. So there's an awful lot of factors we have to try and weigh up when we're, well, I essentially, in conjunction with Aisha, are drawing up our draft recommendations. We look at what we've got on the ground, we look at the feedback that we're getting, and I try and come up with something that I think is going to work locally. Now, I think in some quarters my suggestions haven't necessarily found favour, and that's absolutely fine. I take a fairly dispassionate view of it all. I'm not involved in the local area. I'm not involved at all in, obviously, any form of politics, local or otherwise. So I put forward what I see from my perspective and from a geographer's perspective as well, as what I think may work based on the comments that we've received. It may not reflect the majority of the comments that we've received, but there may be some good ideas within the very, very few that we have received. Obviously, it's up to members at this particular stage to go through those draft recommendations. You're perfectly at liberty, obviously, to amend them, change them, delete them. And the same is true once we get to the discussion of the final recommendations in a few months' time. And I'm probably talking far too much.
I think that was very, very helpful context. Thank you so much, and I appreciate the wider context. I think one of the things that we won't want for in this debate is clear, detailed, and long experiential local knowledge. So having an independent voice and a sense of the wider context of how these processes go up and down the country, as they have, is a useful thing for all present here to consider. Councillor Boffey.
No, just to say thank you very much. That was very helpful. Thanks.
Excellent. So, if we have no further comments from the committee on the proposals in general or related to areas where there are no proposed changes, what I propose to do is now to return to Clive, simply we've enjoyed listening to present the proposals for each of the areas where there is going to be a change in turn. So, Clive, will you be happy to? Yes, are you happy to go?
Yeah,
let's do that.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So let's start with, well, Horsham Town, North Horsham, Rusper, and Colgate. This is an area where you've got a significant number of new settlements, particularly sort of North Horsham, Rusper, and Colgate. New developments straddling boundaries. Our draft recommendations there, and being aware of public feeling, we come forward with two options. The first one, excuse me, is to merge Horsham Town Council with, merge Horsham Town Council with North Horsham Parish Council. Now, my emphasis there is on the word merge. I think it could be perceived the council's probably going to end up being called Horsham, isn't it? Were that to happen. And I think that is perceived potentially as being a takeover, Horsham taking over North Horsham rather than a merger. Don't forget, when this happens, it will come with a fresh set of elections. There'll be a warding pattern established, and new councillors elected throughout the parish. So it is definitely a merger and not a takeover of Horsham with North Horsham. So there's that option. Option 2 was to keep 2 separate councils, but we have had a couple of comments that identified a boundary discrepancy. So the suggestion there is that the Kingsley ward of Horsham Town Council, add the Kingsley ward of Horsham Town Council to the Comptons and Roffey South ward of North Horsham PC to form an enlarged ward. And in both of those options, our suggestion is to include the whole of the Mowbray development, either within the newly enlarged council, covering both areas, or if option 1 to keep them option 2 to keep them separate is chosen, within the area of North Horsham. There are also some suggestions, or a suggestion relating to the Tower Hill and Dean Hill area to the south of Horsham. A suggestion that
apologies to interrupt. Just for anybody who will want that clarified later, it's Den Hill.
I beg your pardon. I've come into trouble on a number of occasions with local pronunciation, so Den Hill. To include Den Hill and Tower Hill within either Horsham or the newly enlarged Horsham Council, were that to take place. It's currently the boundary is the railway line and the river, but it's seen as I think a recreational area, a walking area, that a lot of members, or a lot of respondents, or some respondents, saw as being part of the greater Horsham area. Also within that is the Kilnwood Vale development, that straddles 2 parishes, Rusper and Colgate. So the suggestion there is to form a new separate civil parish and parish council, Kilnwood Vale Neighbourhood Council, unwarded, and with 12 councils. And then a suggestion from the parish council itself, Colgate Parish Council, suggested that were this to happen, that they be renamed Colgate and Faygate Parish Council, which clearly identifies the 2 larger settlements within that area.
Thank you very much. So we do have present with us a member of the public who is a parish councillor here on behalf of Southwater Parish Council, which is one of the several parishes that are affected by proposals related to that. So I will be inviting Councillor Malcolm Briley to speak, and then I propose we go to the other councillors in the room, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Hogburn, and I believe Councillor Vickers as well, who wish to speak on matters related to these areas. So that'll be the running order. So, Councillor Briley, thank you for joining us tonight. You have 2 minutes to address the committee. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Chair and members. Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of Southwater Parish Council regarding the recommendation to move the parish's northern boundary that adjoins the newly formed Town Council. SPC, Southwater Parish Council, offered a full and detailed written response to the single submission to move the boundary to the A24. Referring to Southwater Parish Council by name doesn't truly reflect the many rural communities it consists of, and I appreciate someone who's looking at it from a map won't have a knowledge of those. They include Christ Hospital, Tower Hill, Den Park, Newfound Out and 2 Mile Ash. While other recommendations refer to a weight of evidence and number of responses, SPC has not seen any evidence to support the inclusion of the recommendation. None of the affected communities responded to the consultation or expressed a view that they identify as part of the town. People taking leisure in a parish is very different from those that live there and where they resonate. Southwater's own CGR submission included a request to increase the number of wards to give increased representation to many of the impacted rural communities, rewarding to reflect their identity. The area has historic significance with 10 rural listed buildings. The Stammerham Amenity Association worked closely with SPC, and residents have worked closely as well over the decades to protect the area's rural quality of life against a backdrop of housing targets, growth and development pressure. Residents actively contributed to Southwater's recent neighbourhood plan in 2020. The area is given special designation under SMP 19, Parish Heritage Assets of Tower Hill and Den Park. Shipley and Southwater PCs have opened a consultation on a joint neighbourhood plan, allowing residents to shape the future of the area with a focus on those rural qualities. The proposed change would also create a significant mismatch in democratic representation by higher tier authorities. Boundary Commission guidance is clear on the difference between rural and urban identities. Residents have not expressed a desire to move to urban governance. Some may argue that an urban town council risks weakening the very local governance relationships that have helped protect and reflect their rural identity. SPC asked the council to note the submission, but not to proceed to consultation, as SPC is of the belief that it risks weakening rather than strengthening local governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Briley, for coming and speaking with us tonight. So I will then invite, in order of people contacting to speak at this committee, Councillor Olsen, if you could go ahead and address.
Thank you, Chair. What is Horsham, and who lives in Horsham town? And how would our residents answer these questions? I think that's fundamental to my response that I provided in the first consultation. In 2 years' time, Horsham district is likely to be no more, and in all likelihood, the term Horsham may cease to be used much outside of Horsham town or its immediate surrounds. So the Horsham identity is likely to evolve, and here's an opportunity for us to sort of look at how that might evolve in the future. We were all encouraged to submit responses to the first CGR consultation, and I welcome that opportunity to put forward several ideas for consideration. And Chairman, in your opening statements, you acknowledged our engagement and contributions, and I thank you for that. I also thank the Vice Chairman for welcoming the future responses that are likely to come from residents in the second consultation. So I think first I'll just address my response did talk about the North Horsham boundaries, for which I also must declare I'm a new Horsham Town Councillor. I do support the submission by Horsham Town Council, which suggested that we do put a possible merger out to consultation. But I think it's probably my suggestions for looking at the southern boundaries of the Horsham current town area that have prompted the previous speaker's comments as well. First, I'll talk about urban and rural. I think it's important to note that Horsham town itself is not completely urban. I represent the district ward of Forest, and that includes some rather rural communities of that ward as well. You've got St. Leonard's Park, Manorfield, what are currently rather rural, the residents of Hornbrook Farm. So it is not unique for there to be some, what I think residents who would consider themselves to be rural, to be part of the town area. On a good day, a nice day when there's time affords, I walk outside my door, walk to Chesworth Farm. I often walk down Pedlar's Way, up over Den Hill, cross Den Hill, come back down, maybe to Den Road, come into town maybe for coffee or lunch. And that whole time, for years, I did not know that I'd left Horsham, entered Southwater, and then returned. It wasn't until, as an elected official, I started to realize things. Actually, one of the first issues I ever addressed that actually had to do with Southwater Parish Council areas was the fence that appeared on Pedlar's Way years ago when I was a neighbourhood council in Forest. And as a neighbourhood council, we took a lot of interest in that fence because that's where our residents walked and were very curious. Now, as a town council, my ward is the Chesworth and Oakhill ward, so it does directly bound the River Arun. And at that point, it's also interesting to know that there are several residents just on the other side of the river that can only access their properties by driving through Horsham town, effectively. And I took this opportunity, which I thought was welcome, to sort of just raise the question of, should we ask those residents, where do they feel that they belong at this particular moment in time, and where do they want to belong in the future? Of course, once you sort of open that consideration, you do tend to look a bit further. And I can see Den Hill from my own windows, and I can see the houses on Den Hill, and I wonder, well, do they look down on Horsham Town and feel part of Horsham? And I thought, well, maybe they should be asked. And then, of course, if you look at the map, you can just look directly west of the Worthing Road and see that Tower Hill exists there as well. And I thought, well, perhaps maybe they should be asked as well as a welcoming response. What do they feel? Where do they want to belong in the future? Do they want to be part of? Do they want to? You know, you can be part of Horsham and not live in Horsham Town. Do not get me wrong, but where do they feel most aligned? And my response to the consultation was mostly that I thought these residents were worth asking. And I want to be really clear that if this committee tonight decides to go forward with my suggestions and consult the residents, alter my suggestions or ignore my suggestions, I'm confident that you are here to make that decision. So I trust what will come out of this meeting. But I'd like you to also perhaps trust what residents might have the opportunity to say and consider were they asked. And I think that's where I would probably leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Olsen. Councillor Hogben, you've also indicated that you would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I maybe should have commented earlier, but the title of this review, Governance Community Review, was very misleading. It's a crap title, I'll be honest. If you were to call it...
I'm sorry, Councillor Hogben. First of all, I'd ask you maybe to consider moderating your language.
Apologies, Chair.
The title is not something that this committee had any discretion in arriving at. It's one that's mandated by statutes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I understand, and I was
we operate according to the law in this council, and we don't have discretion to depart from it except as the law advises us. To indicate otherwise and to say that it's misleading is frankly, I'm afraid, unconscionable, and I will not allow it.
Chair, I'm entitled to my opinion, and my opinion is that particular title detracted from the number of correspondents that replied to this particular consultation. The fact it was done over the summer, the fact that there's 5 consultations on the website at this moment in time, all led to a very disappointing response. So thank you for your comments, Chair, but obviously I beg to differ. Now, I have serious concerns about the recommendation to abolish North Horsham Parish Council. I believe that we failed to engage the public properly. I believe the words community governance review were incorrect. And I don't believe that North East Parish Council has submitted a formal consultation response yet. It's one of the most significant consultations that's been recommended today. You've got 305 responses, 115,000 people. So you've got 0.26% of the electorate that's currently replied. I don't think it's statistically representative. Yet the report does conclude that the recommendations, the opening line on page 26, if you've got the draft recommendations in front of you, saying the constitutional evidence provided supports merging of Horsham Town Council and Horsham Parish Council into a single enlarged Horsham Town Council. So that's page 26, opening line. And again, I fundamentally think that statement is flawed. The data you've got, and I refer back to the Vice Chairman's statement that said you were going to make evidence-based decisions this evening, 8 out of 27 correspondents supported merging with the neighbouring parishes from North Horsham. So that's less than a third. And Horsham Town correspondents, only 17 out of 47 respondents supported the principle. So across both areas, out of 74 correspondents, you only got 25 supporting a merger. So that's 33.8%. To me, that's 66% not merging. And they weren't asked the specific question, should North Horsham Parish Council merge with Horsham Town Council? So the committee therefore has no direct evidence that supports the proposal before you tonight. I don't like the word merger. You heard the officer speak earlier in the brief that said it's more like a takeover. I regret, I think you use stronger words than that. It almost feels like a hostile takeover because North Horsham Parish Council does not support this recommendation. I spoke to the chairman, and I spoke to 9 members of North Horsham Parish Council in the last 24 hours, and overwhelming response is that they are against it. North Horsham Parish Council has been running for 132 years, serving this community. North Horsham Parish Council has developed an effective organisation, and it'd be wrong to take away and replace that with a start-up business. This is his words, and I apologise if that offends anyone. Another councillor said North Horsham Parish Council is a very different identity to that of North Horsham Town. And another right is a non-political council that you're trying to merge with us. And again, I use the word take over us. So whether members agree with those sentiments or not, they do demonstrate the strength of feelings amongst the representatives of North Horsham Council. There's also an inconsistency in the draft recommendations. The report rejects a merger with Broadwood Chiefs Parish Council, and it says there's due to be significant resistance from Broadwood Chiefs Parish Council. Well, you have got a massive amount of resistance from North Horsham Parish Council, and that's who I'm here standing up representing this evening. Option 2 is a slightly better option because obviously it removes the option, and I guess my thought before this meeting was that there was an option that you could reject option 1 and option 2, but I've listened to Councillor Briley and I've further read the things about Den Hill and Southwater, and I have respect for Councillor Olsen. I think the fact that the consultation is here is due to somewhat Councillor Olsen's emotive response, and obviously he's spoken tonight and feels it should be consulted on. But I would say you could take option 2, but obviously it sounds as if Southwater Parish Council, the chair of Southwater Parish Council, and we'll hear from the District Council for Southwater, is against it. So, Chairman, my request is that the committee should be guided by the evidence, that the evidence doesn't support the publisher abolishing a North Horsham Parish Council. The consultation did not ask the right questions. 2/3 of correspondence did not respect the principle of merger. The consultation itself acknowledged to be not statistically representative. North Horsham Parish Council has not had the opportunity to put a formal recommendation in. I think I'll leave that there on Horsham Town. I have a further comment on Rusper and Kilmwood Vale, if you'd like that later in the debate, Chairman.
Could I
If
just
you wish
raise
to make that
can I raise a point of order there on behalf of to say something on behalf of the officers? It's simply not true to say that North Horsham Parish Council was not given the opportunity to respond to this. To say nothing of the fact that they did actually send a response in.
Thank you. That point of order is so noted. Councillor Hogben, if you wish to continue and make your comments regarding Kilmwood Vale and Rusper at this time, I think that's fine for you to continue and to make those comments at this time.
Okay, Chairman, I'll just comment on Councillor Boffey's response. The clerk.
Sorry, I've not invited you to comment on Councillor Boffey's response. If you wish to retract any comments, you're welcome to do so, but I don't feel that there's any need for you to comment further. This is not a debate between you and Councillor Boffey on the nature of what you've submitted to the committee to consider this evening. Members of the committee will have the opportunity to debate your contributions as part of the committee's business later on.
Thank you, Chair. The proposal for Kilmwood Vale, I think, has unanimous support. There is very little. The law says that when a parish goes above 1,000 residents, it has a right to be represented and has a right to parish council. We're clearly well above the 1,000 representative threshold. Colgate is a rural district, as is Faygate. Kilmwood Vale is an urban constituency with it is a completely different makeup, and I think that it's not something that needs to be discussed further. I think it has overwhelming support. Kilmwood Vale Parish Council, Rusper Parish Council. On the instant of the other ward that I'm here to represent this evening, Mowbray, my personal view is that Mowbray should remain part of North Horsham Parish Council till it's nurtured and it's grown. And again, when it reaches above 1,000 residents, then it should be given the same rights as Kilmwood Vale. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hogben, and you've offered some insight and a range of different responses to the content of the things, which is precisely the aim of the second consultation period to solicit, and there will be opportunities for you to contribute, as indeed every member of our district or anyone who represents an organisation or stakeholder that operates within it. So thank you for sharing those comments this evening. I'm sure they'll inform the discussions later on. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't be speaking for very long. I just want to speak as the local member for Southwater North, and the suggestion to take Den Hill and Tower Hill out of Southwater and put it in Horsham Town obviously affects my ward considerably. It's almost half my ward. I also support what Councillor Briley said on behalf of the Parish Council. I hope members have read the Southwater Parish Council representation. It's quite full and explains why that particular part of Southwater, the rural part, they feel should stay in Southwater. And my I've lived in that ward for 40 years, so I know it very well. I know lots of the residents, lots of the children in that area go to school in Southwater. When the golf and fitness appeal took place, the inspector gave great weight to the site's sustainability and easy access to schools in Southwater. Community identity, as Councillor Jeffrey said, is the important part of this debate. And I think the identity of those areas that have been suggested taking out Southwater should remain in Southwater. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vickers. So, having had the opportunity to hear from the officer on these proposals, and then from a member of the public and from local ward members related specifically to these proposals on Horsham Town, North Horsham, Colgate, Rossborough and Southwater parishes, does any member wish to comment or ask questions on this particular proposal? I figured that there might be some. Councillor Jeffrey.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I've listened very carefully to what Councillor Briley, Olsen, and Vickers have said in their contributions. I have to say, from my point of view, bearing in mind I am a district councillor for Southwater South, but I'm also a county councillor for the area covering Tower Hill and Den Park. And Salisbury Road. I do have some reservations, I have to say, regarding the proposal to consult residents there on the potential transfer from Southwater Parish to Horsham Town. My concern isn't in the principle of consultation itself, but whether there's actually sufficient evidence before us to justify consulting on this proposal in the first place. As Councillor Briley, I think, briefly touched upon in his comments, historically and the residents of these areas have aligned more closely with the Christ Hospital community as opposed to the town itself, regardless of using town services for leisure or shopping, etc., etc. My view is that before asking residents to consider such a significant change, I think we should first be satisfied that there's evidence of a genuine question around community identity or effective governance that requires testing. I don't see that we have that evidence base in front of us from what I've got in front of me at this moment in time. I think we should also be mindful, and as Councillor Vickers has touched upon in her contribution, that the area under consideration represents a substantial part of Southwater Parish geographically. I think when I did the calculations, it's about 25% of the entire parish area, geographically speaking. And given the scale of that, I do strongly believe that the evidential threshold for including it within the consultation should be correspondingly robust before we decide to consult on this. Without clearer evidence of a community identity issue, again, I don't see the threshold of evidence here. I'm concerned that consultation could become focused on matters which fall outside the purpose of the community governance review, rather than the statutory tests that we're required to consider upon. And I don't think that would be a good outcome for anybody, quite frankly. So for those reasons, I'm not fully convinced that there's a strong enough case at this point in time to be made to include that proposal to go out to a further consultation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Other councillors. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. I found this particular proposal quite complicated to get my head round, and I think that a lot of residents will have equal problems with it, because what we're looking at is Kilmore Vale, we're looking at Mulberry, we're looking at merging North Horsham with Horsham Town, and we're also looking at the Tower Hill area. And I just feel that each of those, whether they're particularly good proposals or not, would be far better if they were a separate proposal. So there's no commonality between looking at Mowbray and looking at Tower Hill. So can we separate them out and have a series of proposals rather than one proposal that covers everything? And I think that way we will get clearer responses, more focused responses, and make life easier for everyone. Thank you.
So, I invite other members to continue. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. This may upset some, but never mind. I wish to place on record my serious reservations regarding the proposals affecting North Horsham Parish Council, Horsham Town Council and South Water. The overall effect of these proposals, or this proposal, is in my view a significant and unjustified expansion of Horsham Town Council's boundaries, assets and influence. To many residents, this will appear, as it does to me, less like a governance improvement and more like a land and financial grab by a newly formed authority looking to enlarge its power base. Consultations with North Horsham Parish Council have been inadequate, with councillors unable to participate fully, so some have, but not all, due to timing and holiday and absences and constraints. North Horsham Parish Council has served its community since 1894, evolving into an effective and efficient organisation that we know today. Its identity is distinct. Rothie and the wider parish have a character more akin to Southwater or Broadridge Heath than to Horsham Town. Physical boundaries reinforce this. Horsham Town Council, by contrast, encompasses the retail centre, major offices, denser housing and key amenities such as theatre and park, pavilions, cinema and restaurants. It already faces substantial responsibilities. It is difficult to see in what is being proposed how to maintain the high standards already achieved in North Horsham, which is why it appears so keen, seemingly, to annex the parish's assets. North Horsham Parish Council is also best placed to support and nurture Mowbray, which they have been doing until Mowbray is established enough to stand on its own 2 feet. And this work has been clearly, effectively going ahead. Now, parish councils are traditionally apolitical, and I know people scoff at this, but fine, it's true. And in my experience, over 3 decades as a parish councillor, over 30 years of experience, introducing party politics into parish governance leads to division and inefficiency. I was disappointed by the overtly political nature of Horsham Town Council elections. North Horsham Parish Council is apolitical, and the councillors say they wish to remain so. Yet the district council of feedback presented in this process comes almost entirely from one political party, all advocating the same outcome. And this raises legitimate concerns about whether the proposals are driven by local need or by political ambition. The background papers and comments also reveal a limited understanding of parish council finances and operations, and I can refer you to the paragraph on the page if you wish. Comments about cost-effective delivery of improved services are not only misleading, but suggest that HTC is seeking premises and resources to establish itself better under the guise of service improvement. I've been running parish council finances.
Sorry, just to clarify, Councillor Clark, and I apologise for interrupting. You referred there to HDC.
HTC.
Horsham
Town Council.
So, for those of us in the room, we are quite familiar with acronyms and we often understand what each other might be referring to. But for the purposes of those who might be following this who are not familiar with our own internalised jargon, I think it would be useful to make very clear when we're referring to the town and when we're referring to the district council. These are important distinctions that I'm sure that you want us to pay attention to as well.
So comments about cost-effective delivery of improved services are not only misleading, but suggest that Horsham Town Council is seeking premises and resources to establish itself better under the guise of service improvement, simply to get the precept and financial reserves as well as the facilities of North Horsham. This would provide improved services for who? Not the residents of North Horsham, I would argue. Crucially, the feedback data, as has been outlined, does not support merging the councils. And I won't go through repeating what's already been said, but I would make the point that North Horsham Parish Council has not formally considered the proposals, so it would be wrong for us to assume any level of agreement. I must also question the proposal to annex a substantial part of Southwater. As a former resident of Southwater, I know well the value of Den Hill and going sledging on it. That was when we had snow, but we don't have anymore. And that area. The only supporting representation came from a single person, key party member, and well covered by the rationale of the other members. Clearly, the town council is motivated by the financial benefits of incorporating that area, particularly once the golf and fitness development is completed, because it will bring a lot more money. This is not about what is best for the residents, it's about expanding the town council's revenue and influence and a dominant political position. These proposals do not reflect community need, resident feedback, or sound governance principles. They reflect the ambitions of a newly formed town council looking to expand its political ideology. So I urge this council to recognise the risks and the lack of evidence and the strong concerns expressed by North Horsham Parish Council and Southwater residents to what's being proposed. And I don't know at what stage it is, but what stage do I propose an amendment to what is being proposed?
I appreciate your indication that you wish to propose an amendment. What I think might be best for the efficiency of this meeting is that we allow the general debate to continue, and then if you would like to, we will make a record of your intention to propose an amendment. And then I propose that when we come to the end of looking at each of the individual proposals, we will break for a moment to allow an appropriate wording to be found for the amendment. If you've got it, that's very helpful. And then we can move to understanding the amendments. Oh, okay, thank you very much.
Can I just make a point of information to
by all means, Councillor
Clark and Councillor Holtman. North Horsham Parish Council, as it's currently constituted, was formed in about 1985 from Horsham Rural Parish Council, which was a donut-shaped council that went right round Horsham and included Broadbridge Heath, Southwater, Faygate and North Horsham. Thank you.
Thank you for that point of information, Councillor.
Can I go back to Chairman on that? It's simply, in the case of abbreviation and keeping it short, I made it short. I knew that.
Okay. Councillor Boffey.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Unlike what I'm usually like, perhaps, I'd like to just try and dial the heat down a little bit. What we're actually here to do as part of a community governance review is to come up with a process whereby we ask the residents of this district whether their governance arrangements are appropriate, and if they don't think they are, how they might like to change them. That's what we're doing here, okay? And the first stage of this governance process, as was outlined earlier, it was started with a blank page to source ideas that people might like to be consulted on. Unfortunately, what I'm hearing quite a lot of at the moment is trying to take things off the table. Don't ask people questions. Don't ask them what they think of this. Don't give them any options. Don't consult them. And that doesn't really sit right with me. There was quite a lot of the previous contribution that it's quite interesting when accusations of political motivation come into it, because the only references I've actually seen so far to politics and party politics and this, that and the other has been from those who think that it's going on. When there hasn't been any. If I could speak for a moment as a Horsham Town Councillor, as I said earlier, I did not, whilst I provided simply factual background information around the process of the Community Governance Review, beyond that, I did not engage in the debate at Horsham Town Council and I did not vote on it. However, I did sit there and listen to it. And there are members on that town council. By the way, in all of its meetings it's happened so far, which is quite substantial, no political party or allegiance has ever been mentioned once, and there's been broad agreement around just about everything that's done in the interest of the community there, which is what lots of people would like to say about certain parish councils that claim to be non-political when it's quite obvious that they're anything but. But the debate as it actually happened was all around, well, we're quite new. the timing of this is slightly unfortunate, but it is what it is. We weren't really in control of it. And we think it's important that, you know, we ask people what they think, and people should be given an opportunity to comment, because if nobody actually puts any of these issues out there, it won't get asked, it won't get consulted on. And we think that's not really necessarily in the public interest, is it? So that's why it was quite carefully worded in terms of not saying we think this should happen. It was we think people should be asked about whether they think it's a good idea or not. And I think that's what the purpose of a community governance review is, isn't it? I find it quite sad, all of this stuff about, oh, it's a land grab, oh, it's about a money grab, oh, it's this, that and the other. It seems nobody's actually listened to the officer presentation at the part of this debate, whereby essentially there is Councillor Hopman, there is no proposal to abolish North Horsham Parish Council. There's a suggestion of a merger, if that is what's deemed to be in the best interest to the people who live in this town. And it is a town. You don't have to look at it, you only have to talk to people as you go around. I think the other thing that's quite interesting with me in this is that all this idea that nobody's wanted it, no one suggests it. Well, actually, 50% of the people who responded from North Horsham said that the boundaries don't reflect their community identity. And the largest response was, what should we do? We should merge with neighbouring parishes. Now, that's just the facts of what came out on the online consultation response. And most of the comments that came in were around, why are we having two councils when we should have one? All of that. Now, I'm not in the position at the moment where I'm saying what I think we should do, because that's not for me to do. That's for the public to decide after the end of a consultation at which these questions are asked and they're involved in the process. But I did help man a stall for most of the day at the Sunday Fun Day in Horsham, where we had a map up of Horsham Town and the area that was covered by Horsham Town Council. And the number of people who came over and looked at this and pointed at it and said, well, what's this? Why is that not part of this? And most of the time, the people who were pointing at the map were people who were saying, well, why am I not part of this when they actually live in North Horsham? Whereas they consider the entire life that they lead as being in Horsham. Now, we're not talking here about actually voting and saying, right, that's it, we're going to do this. It's about asking people a question. What do you want? How do you feel? What do you feel part of? How do you think governance arrangements should happen? So, you know, that's why I'm sort of saying, look, can we dial it down a little bit? I mean, as regards the Southwater matter, I think there's a couple of things I would say about that. Well, three things really. First, I would wholeheartedly support the right and indeed the responsibility of all district councillors to put in suggestions for items that they think they ought to be consulted on if that's what they think is the right thing to do. So I've got no bones whatsoever about Councillor Olsen doing that. But it's for this governance committee to consider things in the round and decide what should be consulted on and taken forward and what should not. So where I would differ from my general principle of asking people the question is that there is an issue here that, like, actually there was only one submission from anyone at all proposing this. Nothing came from any other residents, and the parish council put forward a very well argued, evidenced and constructed case for why it should not be the case, not something that we should consult on. So I think, you know, that needs to be given serious consideration. And I also think, to Councillor Bevis's point, actually, it is, when people are considering what, you know, answering, it is kind of like one more thing on the end, oh, and there's this as well. So it does kind of muddy the issue a little bit, perhaps unnecessarily. My only reservation in sort of saying maybe we shouldn't consult on this one, and this is quite parochial, is around those houses on the northern edge of Den Hill that are just, you know, basically part of the town. You can only get to them through the town. And, you know, are we doing the right thing if we don't ask those people about where do you think you feel part of? I mean, I think we're talking about 6 houses here or something. So there is a question around that, and I appreciate that might turn into another iteration of map drawing. So I'm quite happy to see what other members think and what they think the way is to go on that. But my overall view is we should ask people what they think and what they want to be part of, but it needs to be based on something, and that particular proposal just doesn't have enough weight behind it for me as regards Southwater. As regards Mowbray, I think it's a difficult one, this, because really it's going to be a different community. It's going to be a community all over its own over time. So ideally, in some ways, I would like that to have been treated the same as Kilnwood Vale, but we're just not there yet. It's not capable. It doesn't have enough people living there at the moment to actually form a parish. So I would like to think that that's something that gets considered sooner than the usual 15-year cycle of these things. But now is not really the time. I do think it should be all part of one council, and whether that's North Horsham Parish or an expanded Horsham Town, I'll take the views of other on that one. Kilnwood Vale for me is an open and shut. It needs to be its own community now, because even on nuts and bolts things, it's causing real problems in terms of it's the vast majority of the parish that it's in, but it's not really part of that parish. And there's issues around the separate management charge versus precept and stuff like that. So I think it really is necessary. But so I'm going to stop there, but just kind of, I would like to say, look, can we please get away from all of these suggestions and insinuations about a town council and its actions and motivations about which people actually know nothing, because they haven't been to any of the meetings, they haven't spoken to any of the people, and they haven't seen the quality and calibre of the individuals who are working really hard to do the best thing for their community, all of their community. And frankly, as for this, we're just looking to get this to make things better for them. Trust me, if Horsham Town Council just carries on its own as Horsham Town Council will do just fine.
Thank you, Councillor Boffey. Other members? So, at this time, I've had an indication from Councillor Clark that he has an amendment that he'd like to propose, and I imagine that you have a seconder already prepared that you've considered. Is that correct? No, okay.
Quite happy to take the risk.
Okay, so in which case, what I propose that we do is that if we're comfortable that we've debated this proposal for the time being, and there are no other indications of amendment. Yes, Councillor Boffey.
If I could just ask Councillor Clark, with whatever it is he's about to do, could I make a plea that if it's amendment to not do things, could we please take them bit by bit? Could we take the Southwater bit as one and the North Horsham question as a separate one? Otherwise, we could get into a mess. Thanks.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Councillor Clark, did you want to comment?
Yes, thank you. Yes, looking at this, I mean, effectively what I was, changed my mind as to what I was going to do, but essentially, if we look at option 2, basically, I have no problems with the first paragraph of option 2. Of course, therefore, the second bullet point, it would depend on what happens on the first one, so I get that. I mean, I was initially going to propose that we delete within either the newly enlarged Horsham Town Council and just leave it for North Horsham, basically, Parish Council. But that wouldn't work if we keep option 1. But I was going to propose that we actually delete the Tower Hill and Den Hill from the enlarged Town Council completely, basically, but leave the rest of it. I totally agree with the leader. Kilnwood Vale makes perfect sense. I also understand where he's coming from Mowbray, but I think Mowbray needs a bit of, how can I put this, hand-holding or nappy chain, hand-holding. I'm going to use another analogy, but I won't. But basically, to get Mowbray through, they're going to need help. And so, getting it from North Horsham, hopefully, that makes sense for me as well. And I agree that it should come forward sooner rather than later. But the proposal I have for here is I think it would be better to not have Tower Hill and Den Hill within this proposal. Thank you.
Okay. As I previously suggested, what we'll do is we'll proceed with the debate, particularly because we have other members who are patiently waiting to speak on the areas, the proposals that affect areas that they represent. And we will return to your amendment after a 10-minute break, which you'll have the opportunity to frame the wording of your amendment.
It would also be nice to have a comfort break sometime.
Yes, that was the other thing. So I propose that we continue and move on to the next proposal, if no other member wishes to speak on anything related to what we've just been discussing. Fantastic. In which case, we do have a proposal that's related to Southwater, Shipley, Thacombe and West Grinstead parishes in particular. Now, I understand that we've heard from a member of the public who represents Southwater Parish, who has already spoken, so I'm not going to invite him back to speak again, but please bear his comments in mind. And we're going to move straight to the proposal presentation from the officer. So Clive, thank you very much for your patience. If you could move on to that one.
My pleasure, Chair. Thank you very much. And I think for this one, members have been circulated some updated maps, have they not, Aisha? This is in the agenda pack.
Yes, that's right. That's in relation to Shipley West Grinstead proposal.
Thank you. So this is the southern part of Southwater, Shipley, West Grinstead and Thacombe. There are some developments on the boundary of Southwater Parish Council, and the suggestion here is that the boundary of Southwater Parish Council is extended into those development areas in the north of Shipley Parish Council. They're not the largest development areas I've seen by any stretch of the imagination, but when you look at the geography of the area, they are going to align themselves, in my view, with Southwater rather than Shipley. Ignoring what happens in the north of Shipley, the suggestion from Southwater, due to the development in the south on the boundary and other developments within the area, is that they are amended from having 2 wards to have 3. Southwater North, Southwater Central and Southwater South. The number of councillors there are based on the projected electorates 5 years ahead, which we have to do, taking into account those developments, and those number of councillors for each ward are in proportion to the projected electorate in each of those proposed areas. There are a number of suggestions about dial post, whether that should be included in Shipley Parish, with the boundary running to the west of the A24. That's shown in your packs there. Again, I think that's one that should be put to the public test, if you like. Although obviously it's for members to decide. And Thacombe, if you look at the map of Thacombe, it is probably one of the more unusual parish boundaries that I've come across. And I gather this is a lot to do with ecclesiastical parishes prior to the formation of civil parishes. And it's to do with the association between William Penn in that northern part of the area and the historic ecclesiastical parish of Thacombe, because back in his day, of course, we didn't have civil parishes. And there was a proposal from Shipley that land to the north of, forgive my pronunciation, Sprouts Lane, I assume, be included within Shipley Parish. And if you look at the boundary of that, well, I sort of refer to it as the Thacombe finger, if you like, the part of that boundary that points to the north. Where the boundary runs from the substantive part of the parish, it just cuts diagonally across. It looks like a tack yard, a horse yard. It doesn't follow any naturally defined boundaries. And yes, I mean, to my mind, it just looks strange. I can understand the desire for keeping the historic association, it's been postulated by Shipley Parish Council that residents in that area will look to Coolham, which is in their area, rather to Fakeham for their identity and their services. So the suggestion there is in the draft recommendations that the area north of Sprouts Lane, south of Sprouts Lane, be transferred, because that is what it is suggested by Shipley that residents identify with. Again, residents of that area would be specifically asked for their views if members agree to take it forward, and see what happens.
So very briefly, just following that presentation, we've noted the additional information that we were presented with as part of the addenda to the reports. Does the Governance Committee agree that under the delegation at recommendation 6, that the Democratic Services and Election Manager will correct the maps shown in the draft recommendations to match those shown in the addenda? Okay, excellent. So we've clarified that bit of business and we all understand which map we're talking about. So, Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman. With regard to Dial Post and West Grinstead, the clerk of West Grinstead Parish Council did mail leaflets to residents in Dial Post. However, I was at a West Grinstead Parish Council meeting in Dial Post, and there were a good few residents came in, and I would say the vast majority said they did not get those leaflets and that they overwhelmingly want to stay with West Grinstead. So I welcome the fact that we're going to have a consultation handled by ourselves, so they actually have no reason to say they just threw the leaflet in the bin or not, but that they get their say, because I'm ambivalent. They can go, if they want to go to Shipley, that is their right. If they want to stay with West Grinstead, that is also their right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lambert. Yeah, it is nice to reflect upon the benefits of an opportunity for people to have further opportunities to engage. Any other members wish to speak on this particular? Councillor Bothy.
I just want to acknowledge that neither Shipley Parish Council nor Fakeham Parish Council are happy with this proposal. I understand some of the reasons why and the arguments why. I don't make any decisions yet. I'll leave that until later as to what when we've had the consultation and see what comes through. But I think some of the reasons why are not necessarily well framed or formed or based in what's relevant to this governance review. So I just wanted to put on record that I acknowledge and understand those submissions that they've made and how they feel about this. But hopefully to kind of reassure them that we do want to get to the point where we make evidence-based decisions here. But in order to do that, we need the evidence of the consultation responses. Thanks.
Thank you very much. If members are satisfied that we've discussed all we want to discuss related to that proposal, we will move on to the next one. So, Clive, could you please present the proposals related to Broadbridge Heath and Slinfold parishes?
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. Yes, this was a proposal originally put forward by Broadbridge Heath, and I think supported by a very small number of residents as well, who obviously aware of the proposal. There's a development immediately to the west of Broadbridge Heath, around Lower Broadbridge Farm. The argument there is that development is going to form a functional extension of Broadbridge Heath. Residents will identify far more closely with Broadbridge Heath than they would with Slinfold, and anybody who lives in that development area is going to look to Broadbridge Heath for their local services rather than to Slinfold itself. So the proposal there is that the development area to the east, bounded by the river, is included within Broadbridge Heath Parish. Now, we're already aware that Slinfold Parish Council strongly oppose this, and they cited concerns around their neighbourhood plan, SIL receipts, which don't necessarily form a direct part of the considerations in the community governance review, which are concerned with community identity and efficiency. So the recommendation there is that the boundary of Broadbridge Heath parish is extended west to include the development area in the east of Slinfold, as far as the river. So not in terms, in terms of geographical area, not a large transfer, but there will be obviously a number of properties that are going to be built in that development area over the next few years.
Thank you very much, Clive. So we have here with us tonight Councillor Ross Dye, who represents Warnham, Slinfold and Itchenfield. So please, if you'd like to speak now.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've been made aware of this and had preliminary discussions with Slinfold Parish Council, and has been indicated they have, I think, put it forward an objection based on, as you say, the SIL and housing allocation. And I know I've spoken to Aisha about this, and it would be helpful if we could get some clarification on what the position is regarding SIL and housing allocation numbers and the impact that would have on Slinfold if the transfer goes ahead. But separate to that, I personally feel this is a premature position. If we're saying we're consulting residents, the residents who are actually going to live in this area aren't there, of course, because the houses aren't built yet. And I think it would be better if we left the boundary as it is currently, and then once the development has been completed, then consider whether this is the right place for the development. As you've quite rightly said, there are covered community governance reviews on at least a 15-year cycle, and as Councillor Boffey has indicated, there are some cases where it may be better not to wait full 15 years before the next review, because of build out of developments, and there are several of those, as we know, across the district. So on that basis, I'd just like to say that I support Slinfold's view. The boundary should stay as it is, at least for the moment, and that maybe we consider that there be held in abeyance for a future review.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dye. So over to you, members. Councillor Boffey.
Thank you, Chair. As I've been mentioned, I should, or referred to, I should probably comment. I mean, I think where things are a little bit different in terms of large, entire new communities being developed, such as Kilnwood Vale and Mowbray, that's one thing. And also Mowbray, it's kind of tricky in terms of is it part of North Horsham or is it not? I mean, this one sort of kind of leads to one to ask, look at it. You know, it is an extension of Broadbridge Heath. It just doesn't happen to actually be in the parish of Broadbridge Heath. Now, that doesn't I say that, I'm still, think that we need evidence on these things, really. But I think one of the problems we've got here in terms of the arguments put forward by Broadbridge Heath are all quite strong based on the considerations that are to be taken into account in a community governance review. And most of the points made by Slinfold Parish Council, with all great respect to Slinfold Parish Council, are not really actually germane to a community governance review. So I would be inclined to move forward with consultation on that basis. That would be my feeling on it. Thanks.
Sorry, Councillor Clark.
Thank you. I would surprisingly agree with those comments, because if you look at the argumentation used by the two councils, one is stronger than the other, so therefore it's good. And there is another thing, of course, that natural boundaries or artificial boundaries, but the things that are strong in the landscape help delineate where councils and parishes are, and moving it to the river does actually make sense as well, at least from a geographical point of view, if not from an argumentative point of view in terms of governance.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Do we have any other contributions from members? Okay. but I've not had any indication of any desire for an amendment related to this. So we'll move on to the next thing. But I propose before we do that we just have a 5-minute comfort break, because there's been a lot of important and difficult chats to have. Let's just take a moment, and we'll be back here in 5 minutes. Okay. Getting overexcited there. Thank you very much for your patience. I hope that was a useful comfort break. We're now going to resume the business of the meeting and invite Clive to introduce the proposals regarding Parham and Amberley parishes. We're also grateful to have Councillor Claudia Fisher here, who will be able to address the committee after Clive's presentation.
Thank you very much indeed. Parham, Amberley and Coldwartham. There was initially a suggestion for merger made by the Parham clerk via the online responses, but with Amberley, Coldwartham, Horton and Bury parishes involved. Now, the last two of those are outside of the Horsham area, so we couldn't consider those anyway. And we also established that Coldwartham were absolutely not interested in doing so, which rather just left Amberley and Parham as the two possible councils to merge. Since the Governance Committee papers have been published, we have received further representations from Parham parish councillors, and they've been added as an addendum to the committee papers. The draft recommendations as published were to merge Amberley and Parham, the suggested name of Amberley and Parham. Parham have now asked that the suggestion be rescinded completely. So the question before the committee now is to consider whether to remove this recommendation as per the request from Parham parish councillors.
Thank you very much, Clive. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chair. I first wanted to say thank you very much to everybody here for their diligence and hard work that's put into this tonight and in advance and going forwards. I do think it's really important we review these boundaries as areas change. I think to make it very clear, I'm speaking as a Parham resident, and we call it Parham, not Parham, just mentioning it, and also a parish councillor. Parham is quite an extraordinary parish. It is covers a geographical area as large as Pulborough, but we have 172 electors in that area. I think that gives you an idea of how remote and rural we are. We do have 1,000 deer, though, if that's some comfort. We're situated in the Southlands National Park. It's rural, isolated, historic, and incredibly ecologically sensitive. We've got the RSPB Pulborough Brooks within our area, and also the Rackham RSPB. So I know it well. My family has been in the parish since 1911. I live in a row of houses, just 4 on their own, with a field and the river at the back, the Arun, and another field in front of me. Up the road, there's a few houses, a couple more, and down the road as well. But you know, it's very few on what is quite a busy cut-through road. It also includes the hamlets of Rackham and Wiganholt, which are a little bit larger, and otherwise all the residents are just scattered across a wide area. We have, as a parish, 2 phone boxes, which we bought from the BT for £1, 3 notice boards, and a handful of finger posts, which we're very proud of. Nothing, no property, no land, nothing to manage. Our clerk works 5 hours a week. We have 6 meetings a year. And so we just sort of keep things ticking over. In contrast, Amberley has 2 pubs, a tea room, a shop, a post office, a village green, a car park, and a school. So I think I need to explain that the response from Parham Parish Council was misunderstood. We put in the ideas of Houghton and Bury as being included because we were hoping that LGR might have been announced by then. Obviously, that's not been the case, and Chichester might have become part of the same area. We were really just floating the idea of having a wider parish that covered an ecologically sensitive area, which had lots of things in common. We were not proposing that we merged either just with Amberley or just with Coldwartham. So I think it's really important to note that the priorities of the two parishes, and particularly the community identities, are very, very different. We also were very disappointed to see that there was a suggestion that it should be unwarded, which would have left basically 500 plus electors in Amberley electing, a mix of councillors with probably just 2 or 3 from Parham, but that wouldn't even be guaranteed because of our 172. In the last page of your review, it says Amberley's online response data does not provide active support for a merger, as the respondents would have been unaware of the proposal. But there wasn't a proposal to merge with Amberley alone. So I think that's really important to point out. We've gathered the responses of the Parham Parish councillors, who were very dismayed to hear that this was the case, and it's unanimous that everybody, all 6 of us, we're slightly down 1, we should normally have 7, have said that they would definitely not want to merge with Amberley. Just a little idea of what we do. The only one thing that we have ever had in our parish that is sort of community based is called the Rackham Fete and Flower Show, which was established in 1948. And at the recent parish council, we've agreed that we will try to resurrect it. I cannot imagine that that would happen, and we're making progress already. I cannot imagine that that would happen. Yeah.
Councillor Fisher, this is a delightful insight into
I just want to say,
Parham.
it's a very important
Do we have a
point.
proposal relevant for the considerations of community governance review?
Well, so I haven't got a motion ready, but if there was a councillor that was prepared to put forward a motion to withdraw this proposal, we would be very grateful.
Thank you so much. It was a delightful insight into Parham, which I've been calling wrong for the 35 years I've lived in Horsham district. So, and that's very useful context and insight into clarifying that the information that we received as part of our reports pack. Thank you, members. Councillor Croker.
Thank you, Chair. Based on what I've read and what I've just heard, I would like to propose that this entire section regarding Parham Parish Council, Amberley Parish Council and Cobolton Parish Council is removed from our going forwards.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
I would second that.
Okay, so Councillor Boffey, before we speak, that's a clear indication of an amendment and of a second. Are you content to allow others to speak, and then what we can do when we come to other amendments, we can have the wording of that clarified and framed, and then we can put it to the committee. We can debate it, hopefully fairly briefly, and vote on that amendment as per the constitution mandates that we do. Are you happy with that? Okay, Councillor Boffey, did you want to have a comment then?
If I might, Chair, to put Councillor Fisher's mind at rest, I'm not going to challenge that in any way. That's fine with me. I just have to express a little bit of bafflement as to how all of this happened, and possibly to be reflected on a little bit in the future, because I don't have a problem with, there was only one online submission. I won't sort of speculate too much as to how we got where we are, but there is part of me that just gets a bit confused at the suggestion that, so Parham Parish Council were quite happy to merge, or to consider merging, with Amberley, Coldwaltham, Bury, Houghton and North Stoke, but they weren't happy to merge with Amberley because they were worried about loss of identity. How much of that identity was going to be preserved if they were actually merged with 4 or 5 other parish councils? Just something to reflect on in the future if there's something they ever actually want to think about in the years to come. Thanks.
Okay. If members feel that they've fully debated that, then we shall move on. Clive, if you please could present the proposals related to Bramber and Stenning Town.
Thank you very much indeed. And I'd like to think this is probably one of the least controversial ones before the committee tonight. There was a fairly consistent feedback to the effect that Bramber Brooks Nature Reserve should be transferred into Bramber Parish Council. That was supported by both Bramber Parish Council and by Stenning Town Council. They supported the adjustment of the boundary, so the whole of Bramber Brooks lies within Bramber Parish. The entrance to the area is within Bramber Parish. The site's widely understood apparently to be part of Bramber, and the current boundary divides the site between the two parishes in a way that doesn't really reflect the nature of the area. There was also a suggestion, or a hint of a suggestion, regarding Clays Field, and that Stenning Town Council expressed an interest in discussing the future of that particular field, Clays Field, but that didn't materialise in the form of a concrete suggestion or proposal. So we've not included it because it technically didn't arrive in our inboxes. So the draft recommendation is to extend the boundary of Bramber Parish Council to include the whole of the Bramber Brooks Nature Reserve within their boundary.
Thank you very much, Clive. Does any member wish to comment or ask questions on this proposal? Councillor Bothy.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to be a nuisance. I don't have any problems with this proposal at all, but curiosity and my memory can't help me but ask this question. I seem to remember there's a handful of houses to the east of the 283 in where it's kind of not entirely clear. Well, there's a boundary that goes through the middle of them or something and so on, and I'm not seeing any suggestions at the moment about asking those properties about, you know, what they want to do about that. And I don't know whether other members might be able to shed any light on that, but it kind of seems to be a bit of a shame to miss the opportunity to check, because it can't really be helping the elections team that much, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I'm hoping that someone knows. Mike, do you know where I'm talking about? Down here.
I don't think I can comment.
Perhaps this is one where there will be the opportunity in the second phase of consultation for...
Well, not if we don't ask.
If members are content, I think the officers are just going to check a little bit of information as well.
If you wish, Chair, I can bring a map up on the screen for you.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much, Clive.
Can you see that? Hello?
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
we can.
I think you may be referring to the diagonal line that runs from the A283 down towards where the Bramber is, that cuts diagonally through people's properties and doesn't follow any defined boundary. Would I be correct?
Correct.
Members now have the opportunity, Chairman, to amend the recommendation if they wish.
Indeed. If there is a proposed amendment that anyone would like to bring, please indicate to us. Otherwise, this has been an interesting observation.
I don't have any takers, so I'll just leave it. But it's just kind of weird. But there you go.
So it goes. Well, thank you very much. If there are no other things, then Clive, if you would proceed to present the proposals for Henfield and Upper Beeding parishes.
Thank you very much. Just get my map back to where it was. Okay, Henfield and Upper Beeding. So effectively north of Upper Beeding and the south of Henfield. There's a settlement there, Small Dole, which if you look at the map is the boundary runs around the road. The settlement is quite clearly split between the two parishes, Henfield and Upper Beeding, and respondents to the Small Dole area and both parish councils presented evidence that the village functions as a single community and shouldn't remain split between Henfield and Upper Beeding. To the north of the parish boundary, you have Woodsmill Stream and Horn Lane, which forms, from memory, both the county boundary and the district boundary, rather than the parish boundary, which runs around this curved road. It would make sense to align the parish boundary with the district boundary and the county boundary. From memory, Upper Beeding only supported the alteration on the western side of the area, so running the boundary along Woodsmill Stream, but not along Horn Lane. But it would make, to my mind, it would be sensible to run the boundary so it's coterminous with the other boundaries along Woodsmill Stream and Horn Lane. So the draft recommendation there is to extend the boundary of Upper Beeding Parish Council north to the existing district and county boundary, so the whole of the Small Dole area is within Upper Beeding Parish.
Thank you very much, Clive. Does any member wish to comment or ask any questions about this proposal? I understand that we might have some members who would like to, but sadly can't. Councillor Croker and Councillor Bevis, I also know you like. Who would like to go first?
No.
Tony, you're going first.
Sorry. Just a very small thing, Chairman, that I don't support the idea of renaming the parish Upper Beeding and Small Dole. I mean, obviously people have been focused on looking at Small Dole in this instance, but I think that the name Upper Beeding has served quite well for quite a long time, and I see no reason to change it just because we're making this change. I would also say that I do welcome this change. I'm surprised that Small Dole has survived in this split state for so long. It's been crying out to be either taken into Beeding or taken into Henfield, and it's good that we're now seeing that happen.
Councillor Croker.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Bevis has taken the words out of my mouth, mostly, I think. So thank him for that, and I'd support it as well. Thank you.
Councillor Boffey.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I support the proposal. I just want to note the point that Henfield did raise about kind of the west bit, but not the east bit. Acknowledge that, but it just doesn't seem to make sense or be really based on, have a very firm argument for only doing half of it. I think it needs to be the whole thing. The only other thing I just wanted to check with officers when it comes around to the name is, I believe, do parish councils have another vehicle by which they can make such a change rather than simply through a community governance review? I believe, don't they have some kind of agency over this themselves? Thank you.
Thank you. Clive, are you able to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. First of all, Chairman, forgive me. The recommendations for this area spanned a page break. So they also include, and I'll just cover those quickly, reduce the number of councillors for Upper Beeding Parish Council to 13. That was at their request. And for 3 of those to serve the Small Dole ward and 10 members the Upper Beeding ward. Amend the name of the parish and parish council to Upper Beeding and Small Dole, and to remove the warding for Henfield Parish Council, but not to change their councillor numbers. On the matter of the naming, very, very brief explanation. A parish council name is divided into 2 parts. There's the name, which is Upper Beeding, and there's what we call the style, which can be either parish, town, community, neighbourhood or village. The parish has control over the style in that it can change the style by simple resolution. So Upper Beeding could become Upper Beeding Town Council if it wanted to, just by passing a resolution at one of its council meetings, and it can change it back at any time. The name of the parish can be changed through a community governance review, and it can also be changed by the principal council if it decides to do so outside of a community governance review, and again by simple resolution. But the parish council doesn't have control over its name, only over its style.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Does that satisfy you, Councillor Buffett?
It does. All I want to check really is whether we've got what we've got in the draft recommendations for this, in terms of the questions we're going to ask them. And I can't see it to hand at the moment, but it seems to me there might be a preference for it to be split into 2 questions.
Yeah.
So on Henfield and Upper Beeding, so I think partly there was some qualitative responses to the online questionnaire that suggested that the name Upper Beeding and Small Dole, I think there was 4 responses that suggested that that should be adopted. And then Upper Beeding residents would have the question about, do you think that the boundary should be changed? If it's moved, then do you think the councillor numbers are appropriate? And if it's moved, then do you think the proposed name of Upper Beeding and Small Dole is appropriate? So it's whether members would be minded to leave it in for consultation purposes and find out what the residents want. And it can obviously be revised at the final recommendations.
I mean, personally, I'm happy to leave it in as a question as long as it's a separate question as opposed to the boundary changes.
There seems to be consensus in the room. I think that's something that we can undertake to do without requiring any amendment to the actual proposals here. Okay. Excellent. In which case, if members are happy, we will move on to the proposals for Nuthurst and Lower Beeding parishes. So Clive, if you could present on those, please.
Thank you very much. This is in the report as Nuthurst, Lower Beeding and Cowfold. We did have a representation in relation to Cowfold. It turned out that that was in relation to an historic one particular property that had been in the wrong area for a number of years, and the boundary is correct. It doesn't need to be amended, so it's just sort of kept in there as a drafting error. So Nuthurst and Lower Beeding, again, this is a similar situation, a settlement that is split between 2 areas. It's Monk's Gate. Nuthurst PC initially submitted a proposal to amend the boundary to the east of the parish to incorporate Home Farm and to incorporate the remainder of Monk's Gate along the A281. The addendum to committee papers indicates that the parish council wished to withdraw that proposed boundary amendment, and they also received a representation from Councillor J Mercer as a resident of Monk's Gate, and a further representation by another resident via an online submission. So it's considered that the consultation could continue for a smaller extension to the Nuthurst parish, as shown in map 13 in Appendix 1. Just correct me if I've got any of that wrong, please, Aisha.
No, that's all right. Thank you.
Fantastic. So the draft recommendation is to extend the boundary of Nuthurst Parish Council to the east to include the whole of the area known as Monk's Gate, limit it to the immediate area of Monk's Gate, and to divide Nuthurst Parish Council into 2 wards on a north-south divide, with the boundary running just south of Monk's Gate over to a point where the western boundary narrows and the road runs east-west before turning north. The proposed council numbers are 7 for the North Ward and 4 in the south, which again will reflect the proposed electoral balance between those 2 wards.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clark.
Just a question of the officer is, I can understand part of the boundary, or 2 parts of the boundary, but I can't understand the middle part of the boundary. How is the boundary defined?
Clive, I'm afraid I think that's one for you.
I don't have the map in front of me. Are you able to share it, Aisha?
I can't share it on the screen.
Part of the boundary is a road which runs from Little Colt Staple Farm to Home Farm. But,
yes.
But from Westlands Farm to the boundary to the east, it's not clear to me, bearing in mind my comments about natural features or artificial features, just curious as to how that was defined.
Okay. There should be a map available. From memory, it runs down towards Homewood and the Finches and then joins the Nuthurst Road. Let me see if I can find a copy of the one I drew originally very quickly. If you'll bear with me, Chairman.
Of course, thank you.
But is it a stream? Is it a crest of a hill? Is it a road? Is it a farm track? That sort of question.
So it's unclear whether we're going to be able to get this information in a very timely way. I understand how it might be germane to you, Councillor Clark. Is it going to affect your ability to support the proposal, do you think?
No, Chairman, it's just a question of being clear as to how, where the boundary is, because you're drawing a line between two wards. It just has to be clear what that line is.
Yes, so the officer might come in now.
Obviously, it's quite difficult on the maps that we have to provide that the level of detail is right, but the interactive map is being worked on and will be available for the start of the consultation, so that will enable residents and councillors to kind of zoom in to the particular details.
Excellent.
Thank you, that's fine.
Great, that's brilliant. Councillor Croker.
I have a related question with regard to the boundary at Monk's Gate. Wasn't quite clear whether the dwellings on the southwest side of the 281 are included, which parish they're included in. Perhaps the officer could sort that one out as well. Thank you.
I wouldn't want to comment for the officers.
Again, I don't have that map to hand, I'm afraid.
I have a map and it's loading, so you'll have to bear with me for a minute.
Councillor Boffey, in the meanwhile.
Well, while you do, in the meanwhile, I'll confess to being slightly lost here, but so I'll just ask a question that hopefully this is going to clear it all up. But does the revised, I'm all about modifications to proposals at the moment. Does the revised suggestion, the new map that we're looking for, address the reasons that were originally put forward by those who requested the change to actually deal with that change? There was stuff to do with speed indicator device boundaries and problems like that. Because I haven't seen this latest map, but all I was concerned about was that there was quite a well argued case from Nuthurst Parish Council in the original pack and agenda, which all seemed to make sense to me. And then we got a further representation saying we want to withdraw it, but with absolutely no basis for doing so, which I have a slight issue with. So I'm content to have a modification if it makes both parties happy, but actually addresses the concerns that were raised in the first place. There we go.
Well, thank you for that, Councillor Boffey. Officers, are you in a position to make any further comment?
So the map that's contained within your packs is the correct map. So that's the proposal to slightly incorporate that edge bit of Monk's Gate, which does go, to answer Councillor Croker's question, slightly. The boundary doesn't run along the road itself. It runs just to the south of the A281. So the properties on the southwest side proposed to be moved into the Nuthurst North Ward. and I've identified that the warding boundary runs along a stream. I can't remember if I've answered all of your questions. Sorry.
Councillor Coffey.
We're not actually changing the proposed boundary change then from what was in the original pack. Cool.
You've got the opportunity, Nuthurst have withdrawn their representation. However, as Clive said, there are other representations that came forward also suggesting the same thing. So it's for the governance committee to decide whether still to consult on this extension.
That's fine, and I think we should still consult, but that's just me. Thanks.
There appears to be consensus in the room. Any other member? Fab. In which case, we will continue to the very last one, which is Roderick and Warnham, I believe. Clive, if you wouldn't mind presenting on that.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Again, a very similar situation again. The area known as Rowhook is split between parishes, and there are a small number of responses that raise questions around settlement identity and parish service. There was a suggestion that the boundary of Warnham Parish Council is extended west to include the majority of the area known as Rowhook, with the council numbers for each parish to be kept the same. And again, a map of this has been supplied in your agenda.
Do any members wish to ask any questions or make any comments about this particular proposal? Councillor Bevis.
Just to say, Chairman, that the existing boundary is part of the old Stain Street, which has been there for a very, very long time, and it's very identifiable. The wiggly boundary that we are proposing to replace probably better reflects the community, but it's just a little bit of history we're losing.
As someone who drove that particular stretch of road every day of my school life, and then when I returned to teach many years in my professional life, I don't think that we're going to lose any sense of history for the people who know. But if you'll permit me a comment from the chair, but I think the pertinent thing there to recognise is this a proposal that we can take forward that offers people to reflect on a boundary that more clearly represents their sense of community? Councillor Boffey.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, we have gone through all of the proposed changes that are covered by the things here. Well done. Thank you very much to officers for their detailed presentations and for their fielding our detailed questions on this. Does any member have any further comments in general following the debate on the proposals in relation to the proposed further consultation? Now, I understand. I'm going to throw this out to members of the committee first. We also have present Councillor Ruth Fletcher. I think I will afford her the opportunity to raise a question if she wishes. And as well, of course, as Councillor Vickers and Fisher. Nothing further? Okay, Councillor Fletcher.
Hello, thank you very much. I really just wanted to raise the issue of the content of the leaflet that's going to be going out as part of the second consultation, and to seek reassurance that there's going to be some oversight of the content and tone of that leaflet, because I think listening to the debate tonight, we're all clear that it's very important that we present this well so that people understand that this is an opportunity for their voice to be heard. It's not something that's being imposed on the community, and really just the process by which that will happen and where the opportunities are to look at that and comment as appropriate.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fisher. As Chair, I'm happy to engage with officers on this. If any member had any comments to make, please, you have the opportunity to do so now. Okay. invite officers to make any contribution they'd like to at this point.
Yes, so the letter has been drafted and is ready to go out because obviously we're on a relatively short timescale here, but I'm happy to share that with Councillor Brooks as chairman of the committee to get his insight into whether any amendments are needed. But it essentially runs through what the community governance review is, what the criteria are. It's then for each relevant area. So it's a letter rather than a leaflet, but then it details what the proposal is, which has come from the draft recommendations. It will include a map of the proposed changes and information about how to engage in the consultation.
Excellent. Hopefully that information is useful and satisfies that particular question. So, having come to the conclusion of the debate, Councillor Jeffrey. Sorry, I apologise. I'm jumping the gun here. Councillor Bevis, you're the seconder of the motion. You have the opportunity now to speak summatively about what we've debated so far.
Thank you, Chairman. I think at this time I'll keep it very brief. I'd like to thank the officers for wading through all of this and producing a...
Sorry, Councillor Bevis, a minute.
Yes.
On the point of order, at what point do you introduce amendments?
Yes. So what we'll do, shall we take the 5-minute break now? Then we can introduce amendments.
Sorry, Tony.
That's quite all right.
That's okay. And then we will deal with those. Then we can debate. We can return to the clear up of the process. Thank you for your forbearance. This has been a complicated evening with a number of detailed things. So getting the procedure right is something that I hope to be better at. Thank you. So we will break for 5 minutes. Are you comfortable with that? Yep. Okay. Thanks, guys. councillors. Thank you very much for your patience and for working with the officers to prepare the appropriate wording for some amendments. What we're going to do is Aisha is going to read out the agreed wording of the amendments and then just check that that is as the proposer intends it, and then we can offer that up to see if it is secondable, and then we will proceed to debate those amendments and vote on them. Okay.
So I understand that the first amendment is to recommendation 2, which is to amend it to read, to approve the draft recommendations for the community governance review as contained in Appendix 1 to this report, with an amendment in relation to the following: the proposal for Parham and Amberley Parish Council to be merged to be removed, and for no changes to be proposed to both parishes.
Councillor Clark.
I would propose that, Chairman.
Excellent. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Croker.
Yeah, I'll second it. Thank you.
Excellent. So, Councillor Clark has proposed. Did you want to say anything further?
No, thank you, Chairman. I think it's all been said.
And Councillor Croker is second. Do you want to speak now at the end of the debate?
And I'd say nothing. Thank you.
Excellent. I assume no other member wishes to make things. Councillor Jeffrey, as proposer of the original motion, you do have a right to reply. Do you wish to say anything in relation to this amendment?
Not at this stage, Chair, no.
Okay, so are we all agreed with the amendment?
Agreed.
Agreed. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So we have another amendment before us. Aisha, if you would read out the wording of that, please.
So this is to add a further point. So recommendation 2 would then read, to approve the draft recommendations for the community governance review as contained in Appendix 1 to this report, with amendments in relation to the following: the proposal for Parham and Amberley Parish Council to be merged to be removed and for no changes to be proposed to both parishes, and the proposal for Den Hill and Tower Hill to be included in the newly enlarged Horsham Town Council to be removed as well, or the retained Town Council without the enlargement.
I think because it's been a long meeting, if we wouldn't mind just having another run at that from the top, because I think a couple of our members, including myself, might have got a tiny bit lost there. Thank you for bearing with us. Yes.
Thank you. Can I ask why we're taking these two amendments together and not separately? Is that just time?
So we've already approved the Parham and Amberley amendment. I was just clarifying that the Den Hill and Tower Hill amendment is adding, it's a further amendment to the amendment.
So the confusion, I think, for members is having now agreed the amendment regarding Parham, we still have to keep the words in that are related to Parham, which is why there was a mention of it. And there's a further amendment proposed mentioning Den Hill and Tower Hill. That's what we are now debating. I understand it can be a little bit confusing, but it's very important that we make clear that we are properly debating the full form of the words for the record. We're going slowly because it's important that we get this right. Thank you.
So this would be to remove from the draft recommendations, include Tower Hill and Den Hill within the newly enlarged Horsham Town Council, with Tower Hill and Den Hill being added to the Den Ward. It'd be removing that draft recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Clark, I believe that was as you originally proposed.
Thank you, Chairman, yes.
Excellent. And do you have a seconder?
I second that, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Jeffrey, if you wish to speak as seconder of the motion, Councillor Clark, if you're satisfied, you've said everything that you wanted to as proposer.
Thank you, Chairman. For the sake of our sanity, I think I've said enough.
Grand. And as you are both seconder and have right of reply as mover of the original motion, I would appreciate it, Councillor Jeffrey, if you spoke only once on this, but you have the right to speak twice if you wish.
To echo Councillor Clark's words, and in the interest of sanity, Chair, I quite agree with you. I will not be speaking again on this.
Excellent. Any other takers? Are we all agreed then with the amendment? Excellent. Thank you so much. So with both amendments before us agreed there, we do have a couple of additional clauses that we're required to amend to give effect to everything else that we have done. This is the nature of the process. Aisha's just going to talk us through that.
So this is in relation to the fact that in recommendation 4, you're approving the draft recommendations subject to a period of consultation, which has just been amended, and also that the questionnaire will also need to be amended to reflect the changes. So recommendation 4 to approve that the draft recommendations as amended be subject to a period of consultation from 24th of July to the 7th of September 2026. And recommendation 5 to approve the questionnaire as contained in Appendix 3 to this report with amendments to reflect the amended draft recommendations.
Right, so I'm moving that as chair. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second, Chair.
I have nothing to say on the matter that I haven't already said. Councillor Jeffrey? Anybody else? Are we agreed with those things? Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. So we can now return to the debate of the proposal as we have just amended it, which is my opportunity to invite Councillor Tony Bevis back to speak as seconder of the original proposal. Thank you for your patience, Tony.
Thank you, Chairman. As I started saying before, I'd like to thank the officers for the immense amount of work that they've done in getting us to this stage, and also I'd like to thank Clive for his work behind the scenes before this meeting and his work in front of the scenes this evening. It was very, very helpful. And I think we've now got a useful set of proposals to take out to consultation, and hopefully we will see a higher level of interest now we have some substantive motions and proposals in front of us. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bevis. So, Councillor Jeffrey, you do have a right to reply as the mover of the original motion, if you wish to make any further comments.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to quickly agree with the comments of Councillor Bevis, and thank you to the officers and other contributions throughout this meeting. I feel it's been very constructive overall. There's clearly a plethora of different views that have been debated this evening, and we've gone through all that now, and we've got to the stage we were at this point. I do believe I'm safe in saying that I think we're all in agreement that with the recommendations, with the amendments that we now have in front of us, that this residents deserve the opportunity to have their voices heard, and to ensure that these recommendations face the vigorous test of public opinion, which we all know they will, and to ascertain whether residents agree that these recommendations will effectively deliver the robust local governance arrangements that they are designed to deliver. I don't feel I have to say anything further than that, Chair. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. Now, we will now vote on the recommendations as amended. Does anybody feel that we need to clarify anything that we've done so far? Wonderful. So there is just one further little bit of complication that we have to be added. As they're of interest that have been declared in relation to the Bramber and Stenning proposal and the Henfield and Upper Beeding proposal, we'll need to separate the votes on the recommendations part 2 and part 4. I'll therefore ask for a vote first on recommendations 1, 3, 5 and 6 of the draft proposals, with recommendation 5 as amended, as we've just amended. All members of the committee can vote on this part of it. The recommendations as amended, I don't feel that it would be beneficial to read out, but if anybody needs any clarification, fine. Okay. So, all those in favour of approving the recommendations, please show. That's unanimous. Motion is carried. So we'll now vote on the remaining recommendations 2 and 4 as amended. That might be. That's fine. Yep. All those in favour of approving recommendations 2 and 4 in relation to all proposals with the exclusion of Bramber, Stenning and Henfield and Upper Beeding, please show. So that's voting on 2 and 4 as amended. They're slightly separate. But everybody gets to vote. This is all the things that we've debated earlier.
Just that I can't vote, not that it matters in a way, but on Bramber, and Mike can't vote on the Henfield side.
Yeah,
We do it
so this
together.
is, so we're voting on the things that are excluding those two things. I understand at this stage people are liable to get lost in the source, but it is important for us. So I'm just going to reiterate. We'll now vote on the remaining recommendations 2 and 4 as amended. All members may vote. All those in favour of approving recommendations 2 and 4 in relation to all proposals with the exclusion of Bramber and Stenning and Henfield and other things, please show. So, and that's unanimous. Excellent. The motion's carried there. We'll now vote on the remaining proposals. We'll start with Bramber and Stenning, where Councillor Croker will not vote. All those in favour of approving recommendations 2 and 4 in relation to the Bramber and Stenning proposal, please vote. And that is unanimous. Motion's carried. Finally, we'll vote on Henfield and Upper Beeding. Jill, I'm afraid you're out of this one. All those in favour of approving recommendations 2 and 4 in relation to the Henfield and Upper Beeding proposal, please show. Tony's already there, and it is unanimous. Motion's carried. That is all of the business for this meeting. There is no urgent business, and I therefore declare the meeting closed. Thank you all for your participation this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clive.
Yes, so I've closed the meeting. Thank you so much to officers for their work this evening. It's been exceptional.